Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our workshop session of the Sonoma County Career Fest. I'm Jess Hazelwood. I'm a college and career counselor at Rancho Cotati High School, and I'm here to introduce this workshop today. This workshop is Learning Does Not Stop After High School, and we have two presenters from the U.S. Army, Staff Sergeant Ralph Hershberger and Staff Sergeant William Ortiz, and they will be sharing some information. Although they currently work in the recruiting office, they have held many other types of roles within the Army, and we'll be talking both in terms of military and civilian world about why additional training after high school can be useful for you in your career thinking. I'm going to pass it over to them. A couple quick notes for students before we get started. One is the chat is disabled, but you are able to ask questions through the Q&A. And if you like somebody's question, if you click the little thumbs up, it will upvote it so we know that's a question we can address at the end, and we'll try to leave some time at the end for questions. Also, if you're being required to have attendance recorded for your teacher, we have an attendance form that will show at the end of the session that you'll be able to fill out so that record can be shared with your teacher. If you have any questions for us during the session, please use the Q&A, and that's we can make sure that the presenters also see those questions. And welcome and thank you. And I'm going to pass it over to our presenters today.
Thanks, Jess. That was an awesome introduction.
Yeah. So thanks for having us.
So like Jess said, we're recruiters here in Santa Rosa for the United States Army. Kind of like your college career counselor at school, we actually do help counsel people in career paths. Sometimes that is best to do in the Army, and sometimes it's better to do in the civilian world. So we actually look at people's goals and their plans and how they want to achieve those goals. So we really do appreciate being a part of this webinar. There should be an attachment for our two PDFs. One of them is the Sonoma County Career Fest activity sheet. If you'd like to, you can open that up and kind of follow along and fill it out for your individual needs. And the other one is a contact sheet if you are interested in meeting with either one of us and learning more about what we do or how we could help you achieve your goals. That's optional completely, but feel free to email that back to us if you'd like. But we're going to start off with what is your current career goal? Everyone has different career goals. Like some people want to do professional career goals, like doctor or lawyer, and some people want to work as a mechanic, and there's everything in the spectrum in between. The important thing that we're trying to bring about is we want you to realize that education doesn't stop after high school. It is a continuing thing.
Yeah, so regardless of if you go the professional route or even if you want to do something like trade related, whatever you choose to do, whatever you want for your goal, like in life as far as a career and establishing yourself, it's going to require some additional training, even if it's just on the job, like specific training or getting extra certifications or advancing your degree. Everything, even as you want to be an EMT, I'm a medic in the Army. I have a National Registry EMT certification, and every 2 years, there's a required amount of continued education I have to complete in order to renew that certification. And that's not even Army related. That's just my national certification. The National Registry requires that. And a lot of jobs require, especially in the medical field, you can't just one and done it. There's always advances. There's always new guidelines. There's always new technologies that change the way you operate on a daily basis. And you have to complete that continued education to remain certified in that field.
I know when I graduated high school, I thought that I would never continue on my education. I didn't think that there was a point for it. So this is kind of the reason we're doing this class is we want you to have a head start and to realize unless you want to work like at Walmart or McDonald's or some of the very like less education required fields, you're going to have to learn something throughout. So like he was talking about the medical profession, they have CEUs, social workers have CEUs. There's a lot of professions out there that you have a requirement to learn every year. But even less than that, I know in Sonoma County, with talking a lot of the youth, that people want to be construction workers or skilled trades of some sort, whether it's mechanic. And especially now with the development of technology, like connecting into like appliances and smart homes and cars getting more sophisticated and being more computer run, you can't just learn how to be a mechanic or learn how to be a builder or a plumber and not continue to grow in your profession and still expect to be one of the best in your career field.
Yeah. So moving on to the next thing, right, is what kind of education is required to get a career in your desired field, like entry level, right? There's requirements at the entry level, but we want you to think about how to set yourself apart, how to advance in that career field, how to actually make it a career, because you can't just go in entry level and say, hey, I'm done, I made it. There's going to be somewhat of a requirement to advance in that career eventually. And that's going to be completed through that continuing education, either through going and getting an additional certification. So if you're even something like mechanic, if you go to the basic mechanic courses, you're going to learn how to work on like engines, right? But eventually you're going to have to go to suspension work. You're going to have to learn hydraulic systems. And everything has that. The medical field especially has that. Everything from basic x-ray tech, you get additional certifications to do like CT and MRI. Or even myself as a medic, I have a National Registry EMT, but I can also get ACLS and PALS and those advanced certifications that will allow me to do more things and perform better in my job.
So basically, no matter what career field you want to do, it's good to start where you are at now and to seeing what all kinds of education you can get to not only just be as good as everyone else or meet the minimum requirement, but what can set you up to be more successful or to be ahead of your peers, right? We talked a little bit about some of the different kinds of certifications, and even when people think of the trades like, oh, well, I'm just going to go be an apprentice as a plumber and go to the JC. People need to realize that it's not just like you get hired at a job and you don't learn anything, right? It's like usually 2 to 5 years to get all your certifications that you need and to go through your apprenticeship. So after you finish that, there's still going to be like changes in codes and different things like that. You need to constantly have a mentality of learning.
And whether it's, like you said, trade schools, right? Traditional college is also another path you can take. If you have a career in something and you want to maybe change it or maybe go to the next level, traditional college might be the route you need to take, and you need to find where to balance that in with your career to be able to advance it. I talked about like additional certifications. That's a big one. That's probably the most common one that people can get to kind of advance their career. But it comes in a variety of shapes and forms of where that continued education is going to go to. So just because you don't necessarily like going to traditional college doesn't mean you're never going to learn anything new or go to advanced courses to advance in your career field.
So here, if you're still following along with the sheet, I want you to take some time to think about, or while we speak, to think about the 3 benefits that you feel you can get from continuing education. But I also want you to think about the 3 drawbacks. We've already kind of covered some of the benefits, but just to kind of start your thinking process is there are drawbacks to education too. It does take time. You can't just immediately go into the workforce and have all the education done, right? It's also going to cost money. We talked a little bit about some of the costs, but if you're looking at average costs for school, we did look this up earlier today, but it's roughly $25,000 for a 4-year in-state bachelor's degree. If you decide to go out of state, that's a public school. if you go out of state to a public school, it goes up to 116. And then if you do like private or something else, the cost goes up from there. So you also have to plan, how are you going to pay for that? I know every high school has a college and career counselor. I highly recommend, don't wait till you're a senior. Start talking to them wherever you are right now to see how you can get scholarships or different ways to pay for school. Not everyone has the money in the bank to do it.
Yeah. Another one of the drawbacks, right, is time. Like I said, you have to find where to balance. If you're working a full-time job, you need to find where to balance and get the time to be able to conduct that continuing education. Sometimes, you know, if you have a job that requires it, the job will give you that time to go do it. They'll send you to those advanced certifications and they'll send you to get those continuing education credits. But a lot of the times it is on you to kind of find that balance and figure out how you're going to be able to manage that. But that doesn't make it less of a requirement, or it doesn't make it less important to think about and try to put effort into figuring out where that time's going to come from and how you can still manage to complete those additional certifications or attend that traditional school. Even if it's just 1 or 2 classes at a time, eventually you'll be able to accumulate enough to be able to pull ahead and get that advanced degree or that advanced certification.
So I'm going to spend just a little bit of time here talking about how for us as career counselors in the military sector, one of the avenues to pay for college is the Army. It's not the only way. Like I said, there's tons of scholarships. Starbucks has a scholarship for its employees. Walmart has scholarships. And like I said, your college and career counselor can help you find out the best one for you. But one of the things about the Army is we do have like part-time and full-time options where both of them pay for college. We have $60,000 for a GI Bill, and they pay for housing. They pay for $1,000 a year for books, and they pay for your tuition. Also, while you're in, they give you tuition assistance. So I myself, I told you at the beginning, I never had a desire to do any college. I am currently almost done with my master's. I haven't paid 1 cent, and I've kind of done it slowly. Some people decide to do like reserves where they go to school full time and just do the Army like 1 week in a month. But one of the good things about my career choice for myself is all that Army training I got all counted as college credit. And so when I do eventually get out of the Army, I will have experience as well as the college credit. So just something to think about.
Yeah. And so I've been kind of slacking. Everyone always gives me a little bit of grief because I took one online class, and I don't really like online school, but there are in-person class options too that the Army will pay for. But where I have done my advanced training, like I said, I have my advanced cardiac life support certification. I have my pediatric life support certification. I have international trauma life support. I have advanced burn life support. So I have gotten additional certifications without going to traditional school. And it's all stuff that was paid for through my career, right, in the Army. And because I'm in that career field, those options were made available to me without me having to figure out how to pay for it. And I actually didn't have to spend any of my own time doing it either. Like my job sent me to those courses to get those advanced certifications. But it is one of the advantages of it. And you know, they've been getting on me again about taking advantage of the tuition assistance and going back to traditional school. But it is rough to find the balance of when you're going to find the time to do it and how you're going to pay for it. And it's definitely worth it at the end of the day to put the effort into it to figure it out and manage it.
So I guess the main takeaway for this whole webinar is we want people to start thinking about the importance of having a spirit of education and learning, right? We don't want you to feel like high school's the end. if you don't want to go to a 4-year, and that you're just going to be stagnant where you're at. 4-year colleges are great. They have a purpose. I mean, wages connect to education. I actually have a little slide I'm gonna bring up real quick, but basically, like, the more education you get, the more you're likely to get paid. But I mean, with the exception of the doctors, it's just a little bit less. But so if you look at this screen right here, you can see that you get paid more based on the education you have for the most part. This was of 2017. So this is the most recent documentation I could find, or statistics I could find. But the point is, you can be successful without a lot of education, but having an attitude of wanting to learn and progress and setting yourself up as better than your peers, right? You're always in a competition against somebody. So the more you try to set yourself as more educated, more aware of what's going on, the better off you're going to be. And we don't want this to sound like, oh, 4-year college is the only way to go, because some people tend to learn more hands-on. Some people want to do a trade job, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a valued part of our community. It's needed jobs, but it's not something you can just sit back and not learn and just kind of do. There's very few jobs like that, and they usually don't pay a whole lot. So it depends on what you want to do to make your success in your life.
Yeah, we actually tried to find, it was hard to find jobs that don't require some kind of continuing education. And it was stuff like delivery driver, restaurant server, bartender, and fast food workers are on a very small list of jobs that you can get. And they're just that, right? They're jobs. They're not, I guess you could make a career out of being a delivery driver, but that's not something that you can really say is a career. It's a job that you're doing right now, maybe while you're working towards something else that you really want to have a career in, right? And that's what we're getting at too, is if you want to have a successful career in something, it's going to require you to do some form of additional learning after high school. It's not just gonna be something you can pick up and be like, okay, I'm done, I got this, let me do the same thing for the next 20 or 30 years and then I'll be set. You could potentially do that, but it's not going to be the easiest path for you to take, and it's definitely worth the additional effort to do some form of additional training, of additional education, whether it be through traditional college, advanced certifications, additional skills, even most things that just day-to-day working, right? You're gonna learn something, and eventually you're gonna teach somebody else that thing. And being able to say like, hey, I learned how to do this skill and pass that on is going to ultimately be what sets you apart. How many people can successfully teach? That's how you know when you learn something right? When you can teach it to somebody else. And you're always going to have to learn new things. Technology is always going to be advancing. The standards for, whether it be construction, like building codes or fire codes, or even just standard procedures for doing a particular task or skill, it's going to be constantly evolving and changing, and there's going to be new data to prove this way works better than the other, and you have to be willing and open to accept those and look into it so that you have the best information, so that you know what you're doing is the best, that is the highest standard of what the information provides right now.
So I think at this time, we'd like to open it up to any questions from those who are watching.
So I'm just going to jump in for anybody, any students or anybody or any non-students that are watching that might have questions they want to ask about additional training or how education relates. And I wanted to ask, could you re-show that chart one more time? I think that's a great indication can start to give students an idea of why, whether or not they want to go a 4-year college route or not, that additional training can really make a difference in their ability to make the earnings and have that quality of life in term that they might be thinking about. And you'll notice that even a little bit of training can make a big difference in the amount of pay you can make. I'm just thinking, so if there's any questions, please put them in there. I had another question for you, is if maybe you could both speak to how the training you received maybe changed your career opportunities so far.
So I can definitely talk about the Army training that I've done personally. So besides basic training and my specific job training, because every job has its own training in the Army, we call it MOS, which is our job. He mentioned he was the EMT. I'm a religious affairs NCO. So I work with like the chaplain, and I brief the commander on the religious impact in the battlefield, as well as make sure that all of our soldiers have Title X rights to worship whatever God they choose. So that interests me. That's why I chose that career. I'm getting my bachelor's, or I got my bachelor's in religion and my master's in theological studies, because the Army gave me a desire for this job. But specifically Army training, I've done what's called master resiliency training, which I teach people how to be able to be more resilient in different situations with different skill sets, so that we have better mental health in the military. I also have been trained to be an instructor for singles and marriage counseling through a program called Strong Bonds. I've been through leadership courses through BLC, which is your basic leaders course, ALC, which is your advanced leaders course. The Army values training and education so much that if you're not going to some kind of military school every year, you're not going to progress. And anytime you get promoted, you have to go to a leadership school. It's a requirement to get promoted. Actually, there's a statistics. Hopefully Jess can pull this up for me, because I didn't look this one up ahead of time, but I've seen it. CEOs from the major Fortune 500 companies, most of them actually have some kind of military experience. So leadership in the Army and in the civilian sector is very, very important. So you can't be a leader if you're not willing to learn and to progress. And even right now, I had to go to a recruiting school to learn how to be a recruiter and talk to you guys and help you guys develop a career path that will be beneficial to you. What about you?
Yeah, so in addition to the job training and basic training, I've also been to the basic leader course and the advanced leader course. I'm actually enrolled in the senior leader course right now. I've also been to a adult learning instructor course. So I am a certified instructor through the Army. I've also been to what's called Jump Master school, which both of us actually jump out of airplanes for our jobs in the Army. And I have the additional skill to make sure other people safely jump out of those airplanes. And I know how to check them and make sure that they don't get hurt before they do it. I've also been to like things that you wouldn't think of necessarily, right? So I'm hazmat transportation certified as well, which is just something that like we needed someone to go to, and I got to go to that course. So that is something else I got to do. But besides that, the other things that I already talked about, the ACLS and PALS and ITLS and the ABLS. I'm also a CPR instructor through the American Red Cross and through American Heart Association. So I can teach classes under both of those organizations. And those are civilian organizations, but they are what we get our certifications through in the Army.
Yeah, I would like to caveat real quick and mention that like he was saying, all the education we get in the Army is valuable, and it relates to the civilian sector at some point. My basic training was 9 weeks and 4 days. my job training to be a religious affairs specialist was 7 weeks. So roughly 5 months. And I ended up getting 30 college credits for that. So that's like almost, or that is a whole year worth of school. So it's not like it's only valued in the military. It's translatable. So.
Well, thank you both. It sounds like, I mean, and just your experience really illustrates that even once you get initial training, that you're going to be continuing to grow and learn and be able to offer different services, whether you're on the civilian or military side. And so that even after a student maybe chooses an initial training, they're going to want to keep looking for opportunities to grow. I just want to remind students, if there was a sheet that you can complete to kind of help you think through what are your goals and what are kind of the what kind of training you might need, and we have, I've posted those again in the chat. You'll also notice that as they were speaking, I posted some other resources you might want to check out. I included one resource, which is called the Occupational Handbook. It's a government resource. It lists a bunch of different career areas, and you can actually look up what kind of training might be needed to access any of those. I think this was referenced earlier. So if you are interested in a career and want to do a little bit more research about, okay, what kind of training would I need to do after high school to get that? This website is a great website to actually tell you exactly how much training you'll need and if that will include school or on-the-job training, apprenticeship, and things like that. I also post, if you just want to learn more about local careers, we have a great resource at the CTE Foundation of videos, interviews they've done with local people in industries, and often they talk about how they got to the career or things you might need to know if you want to enter that career. And I did post a link to a similar chart on the data that relates the career training and the overall pay that you get. So if you're interested in any of those resources, please check out the chat. I'm going to post into there also our link. If you do need to get attendance credit, your teachers asked you to fill this form out. We have a form you need to go and fill out. These are time-stamped. Please only fill it out for this session, but we can provide this record to your teacher if requested by your site. And I think that's all. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to just leave it open for a second. So if anyone wants to go into the chat and grab any of our resources, please know that the worksheet provided is also available on our CTE Foundation Career Fest webpage. So if you don't grab it right now, you can always go back there and find it later. And thank you both for joining us today and hopefully inspiring some of our students to look into the training they might need after high school and explore their career options. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.